Oh, it's... After building the Amiga 600, I thought I need to do something internal. I didn't want to go accelerating it to the nines, because one, that's quite expensive, and two, it's probably a lot of faff, but not a lot of gain. What I do want is a machine that I can play some games on. This A600 with its compact form factor is perfect for that. Externally, this A600 is amazing. It has a two-tone paint job with gunmetal grey on top and a pearlescent bright candy orange on the bottom. And I think it's probably one of the nicest jobs I've done of a case customization. But internally, it's a stock A600. I was reading an article by Linux Jedi. He was looking at the performance difference specifically between the 68000 and the 68010 processors. The 68010 is pretty much a 68000. It has some fixes to the instruction set, has some more instructions that kind of give it a almost virtual memory capability, but not quite an MMU. But it does have some key optimizations around anything that's a tight loop. Many people will tell you that putting in a 68010 into a 68000 machine will give you no gain.
Let's go to school, it's just ridiculous.
Now that's not strictly true. It has some functionality that helps with WHDLoad. That allows you to exit out of WHDLoad without actually having to reset the machine. Also, it has much better performance with a lot of particularly Bitmap Brothers games. Linux Jedi has a video on that, and I'll link that in the description below. I came across another article posted on the Exodus forums, and that was around building an adapter to put in a dual inline package, or a DIP 68000 into an Amiga 600. So I thought, why don't I create a PCB to do just that? Allow me to put a 68000 DIP package into an Amiga 600. So building this board is relatively simple. It's just a two-layer PCB that routes all the address lines, all the data lines, and all the control lines between the two CPU sockets. It does have two capacitors. They do provide some level of decoupling, but they also provide a sneaky mechanical standoff. The small adapter board I have created, I have named Well I'll Be Dipped. Assembling the board doesn't take long at all. So once that's built and the 68010's in it, putting it in Amiga is really simple. I have added the holes because that's what everybody seems to do, to allow you to use the hard drive mounting points as fixtures. The second part of this is I wanted to do a ROM switcher. Now, the ROM switcher that I've built for the A500 won't fit. This relocates the ROM to round the side, so it's as far back in the case as possible. One thing to note is when you do build these, you have to be very careful when soldering where the pins cross over each other. This is something that Fuzzy Lee on the Retro Hardware Discord had a little bit of problem, because I gave him one of these boards to sort of test. You'll see my technique here for doing it is maybe a little unorthodox, but it gets the job done. My first pass at building this is just for testing. So I'm putting a socket in. However, you can't actually put a socket in when you're using it in the machine because you won't be able to get the keyboard on the A600. But it does fit perfectly if the ROM is soldered to the board, and you can program straight through the adapter. Anyway, my plan will be to, everything that I've done in this, I will at some point put on PCBWay shared projects, which is another fantastic thing about PCBWay. Because when you share projects on PCBWay, you get some commission when people use your projects. And that helps support the creator community, for which I consider myself part of. Sponsors of this video are PCBWay. They provide PCB prototype fabrication from as little as $5. They also have a huge library of shared projects. And if you're not confident with a soldering iron, you can even get them to assemble them for you. PCBWay also have CNC machining and 3D printing services. All of this is available at PCBWay.com. Thanks PCBWay for sponsoring this video. I had the intent of having the header mounted on the top side of the board, but I actually discovered it makes more sense to fit it underneath, and it fits much better. And that also removes another profile issue with the keyboard. So you'll see a difference between the mock-up one and the one that's finally in the machine. I'm not going to bore you with building twice. It's all well and good having a ROM switcher inside the case, but this one has no fancy electronics, no weird key combinations, so I need to mount some switches. Now, I don't want to make any permanent holes in the case. I'm also not likely to be putting a PCMCIA card into this machine while I'm at the show, so I'm going to repurpose the PCMCIA slot by mounting 2 switches in it. My original plan was to use a piece of plastic, but I had problems drilling that. It kept shattering. Now, that's probably because my drill bit's not sharp.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
Maybe I could get this done with fiberglass. I've got a few PCBs throwing around that have errors on them or are just complete junk, but reusing them for projects like this is quite useful. And this one already has 2 holes in it in about the right place. And if you can guess what this PCB was originally meant for, you won't get any extra points, but it might make an interesting conversation point in the comments. So this is a final version installed in the case. The connector is now on the underside and the ROM is soldered directly to the board. So with all that done, everything's now back in the case and it's looking pretty tidy. All I've got to do now is work out how I'm going to display this when I get to Cambridge.
Oh, it's 10 past 6, so I'm actually running hideously late. I wanted to be on the road by 6. But breakfast is calling in a faraway town, so Cambridge is here. We're retro bound. Well, we're in the car, it's dark, and we're setting off.
If you found any part of this video informative, useful, or entertaining, then please click like. And if you'd like more content like this, then please click on subscribe. That way you'll get notified when I post new videos. But in the meantime, why don't you check this out next?